Have you ever had a chainsaw start cutting crooked? I'm going to show you an easy way to fix that. One of the things that can cause a chainsaw to cut crooked is if the chain is not sharpened properly, if it's uneven on one side versus the other, if your rakers are filed unevenly, it can cause it to cut crooked. But I haven't found that to be a common problem. Most of the time when I've had a saw start cutting crooked, I can fool around with the chain, but it ends up being the bar that's the problem. But that's a good thing because it's usually an easy fix. I'll show you how to do it. When a chainsaw operates, of course, these drivers are sliding through this groove, which is metal on metal, except for a little bit of bar oil. Over time, these drivers wear out the inside of this groove, and you end up getting more space in here. At the same time, these drivers wear down and get thinner. Eventually it'll wear to a point where you get too much slop between the chain and the bar. When a chain starts getting too much slop in that groove, it gets a mind of its own, and it can do all kinds of things, which is usually cutting crooked. Earlier I said it's usually not the chain, it's the bar. I should correct that or qualify that. When a chain gets a lot of hours, these drivers will wear out. If you have an old wore out chain, sometimes the chain will start cutting crooked just because it's old and wore out, even if the bar is good. That just means it's time to put on a new chain. But if you have a good chain that's not wore out and you still have a lot of slop in here, that's a good indication this groove is starting to wear out. Actually, that doesn't mean it's starting to wear out because it's starting to wear out the moment you start using it. But that means it is wore out. One way to fix that is to take your bar into your dealer and have them profile it. They can fix that up. They can close up this gap. They can fix it up. They can turn a wore out bar into a like new bar. That is if your bar is not just completely wore out and in too bad of condition. Also, if it's not in bad condition, you can do it yourself with one of these little inexpensive goodies. It has these adjustable wheels. You put the bar in between those wheels, tighten down on a little bit, just enough to where it will compress the sides of those grooves in just a little bit. Then you just push it down the bar on both sides. As these wheels roll over, it pushes on both sides, closing up that gap. The goal here is to close that gap up enough to eliminate that slop in the chain, but you don't want to close it up so much it's going to pinch the chain and cause resistance. After that first pass, I can tell there's less slop, but still more than I want. Tighten it up just a little bit, then go over it again. Both sides. I only tighten it up and close it a little bit at a time on each pass, and always check in between, because the last thing you want to do is get it so tight that your chain won't fit back in it, or it fits back in too tight. You want to check both sides independently because both sides will wear differently. Still a little more slop than I want. When I start getting close to where I want it, I'll only close up a small spot, then test it. That way, if I get it too tight, I don't have to fix the whole bar, I can just fix one small spot. That's pretty good right there. There's not much slop and the chain still slides freely. We'll finish off the rest of that side. The one time I did get it too tight, I just went down the length of the bar with a screwdriver and just pried it open a little bit. Kind of a barbaric way to do it, but it all worked out fine. It only took me one time to learn on that one. I never did close it up too much again after that. The close-up of how this works. Bar goes in between the wheels. Has these two guides here to guide the rear end. The end of the handle is a stop. You can adjust the height on that. To adjust the angle this way, you want it to be angled inward, so the wheels will pull it into the bar and it won't slide off. If you have it flat like that, the wheels are likely just to slip off. The important thing is to only close it up a little bit at a time. It's okay to have a little bit of slop in the chain. That's normal. You just don't want a lot of slop, and you definitely don't want it to be tight in there. It's also best to not do that with a wore out chain, because if you close it up and then adjust it to a wore out chain, then when you go to put a newer chain on, it might be closed up too much because it's adjusted to the old wore out chain that you should be just replacing. This chain's about 1/3 of its way through its life. I think that's good enough. By the time this one's wore out, this channel will have opened up a little bit. If your saw is cutting crooked, number one, make sure you're filing it properly and it's not uneven. Two, make sure it's just not a wore out chain. If it's not any of those, a good chance it's going to be the bar. Another thing to check, see if there are any burrs forming on the edge. You can tell that with your fingernail. This one doesn't have any burrs, or very little. So little I would say it's not. Sometimes the metal distorts on this corner and you get a little burr sticking out. There are tools you can buy to file that off, or if you're really good you could use a file to do it. I typically don't have problems with burrs, but I've seen bars where there's a big burr sticking out the side on here. My corners usually stay pretty smooth and square, which may be because I keep my chains sharp, I keep them tensioned right, I always keep them lubricated. Even though this bar has a whole lot of hours on it, if you notice, most of the paint is still good. Some bars I see, the paint is just gone along the edges. I do expect the paint will eventually wear off. That's normal. I'm just saying there's no signs that it's prematurely burned off. This paint has actually lasted longer than I would expect. It must have been a good paint job. I think the reason I'm not getting burrs on my bars is the same reason why I'm not burning the paint off the edges. I think a lot of people run their chains too tight. A lot of them run them too dull. I can hear people running their saws a lot of times. The engine is revved up so high, it sounds like they're wearing through the wood more than they are cutting through the wood. That is one of the reasons I think a lot of people have problems with their bars wearing out much sooner than they should. The point of mentioning all that is if your bar is really messed up, you're probably better off taking it into a professional to have them profile it. The reason I can get away with using this is because I don't thrash my bars. I keep them in really good condition. As soon as I start noticing it's cutting crooked, I'll fix it. I don't get it so bad that I can't fix it with one of these. Very little slack, still slides freely. That's what we want. The name on this one is Woodsman Pro. Has W10001 on it. This one's been around for so long, I don't even remember where it came from. I tried to look up this brand online. I couldn't find it, but I found other ones. There are some on Amazon. You can get them for $20, $30, but buyer beware. I looked through some of the comments and there were a lot of people, or not the comments, but the, what do you call those? The reviews on Amazon. There were a lot of people saying they were having problems with those ones. From what they were describing, it might have been these threads that stripped. It sounded like those ones were made out of aluminum. This one is steel. If you do a search for something like chainsaw bar profile tool, you should be able to find some. Since I can't vouch for the quality of any of them, I don't plan on putting a link. If anyone knows where you can get one of these that is good quality, let us know in the comments. Maybe that'll help someone out. If I do find one that's good quality, I may put it in the description. You might check that. I've been on YouTube long enough now to know that anytime anybody does anything about chainsaws on YouTube, we have to do some preemptive comment management. Before you talk about any bad things that are going to happen from anything I'm doing here, I will use my standard reply to that. If any of those things were true, I would have stopped doing these things decades ago. And just because I'm talking about my chainsaw was cutting crooked, that doesn't mean I have a common problem with my chainsaw cutting crooked. I've been running this bar for 5 years now. It's just now starting to cut a little bit crooked after having a whole lot of hours on it. It's just a natural part of using a chainsaw. Eventually, the bar will wear out. I've had a really good life on this bar. If your chainsaw ever starts cutting crooked, hopefully this helps. Unfortunately, when it comes to recommending where to get one of these now, I'm pretty much worthless. To make up for that, I will put up a video or two up here for you to go watch. Hopefully by the time you finish those, you'll forget all about my lousy performance of not being able to tell you where you can get these. That would be a good thing, at least for me.